Ta-da! We're live!
Woohoo!
Hey, everybody.
Sup?
My hair okay?
Yes.
All right, good.
We did a little last minute adjustment for something tomorrow. So Chris is slightly flustered.
Scrambling about.
Scrambling. Hello, Nico, sir. How are you? You have an itchy?
Are you going to come get on camera, buddy?
Well, Mommy's life is currently acapado, Daddy, and I has an itchy.
This is travesty.
Travesty.
Oh, dear. We'll go with that. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Ghost Ships and Legends of the Sea, Volume 2. We're talking about that. But, yeah, so, anyways,
All right, buddy, let me get legs up so you have a place to go.
we talked to you last 2 weeks ago, and in these last couple of weeks, we've been busy.
Yeah, so we had Virginia Comic-Con,
Yep.
and
If you came and saw us there at our table, I hope you appreciate that, and it was good to see you if you pop by to see us. And yeah, we had a good time there, and we already signed up. We're going to do that again for the one that's going to be in late November, or the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
yes.
So yeah, if you missed us at this Comic-Con, you can come check us out at that Comic-Con, just in time to do a little Christmas shopping, no less. So, anyways.
And you can also, of course, catch us at Nightmare Weekend, because we will be there.
Nightmare Weekend coming up the October 11th, 12th, and 13th. We will be there all weekend. Beth will be at the Branch Museum on Friday, October 11th, because we love double booking ourselves in October. But yeah, so we got that coming up. And this past weekend, we sponsored two things. We were active. We were active in the community. We were at the St. Benedict's Oktoberfest for good chunks of the weekend. We were there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, partaking in the excellent food and beverages there.
And Christmas shopping.
And did
Because I
shopping.
did Christmas shopping.
Yep. And so we were there. And on Saturday night, we sponsored the world premiere of a movie called Solitude.
So it was an indie horror film.
Very, very good. I enjoyed it. We enjoyed it immensely. And we got a signed poster from a good portion of the
cast and crew, and we got a DVD signed by them as well. So.
Yep. So I'm waiting for them to post something about the premiere on their Facebook. They haven't followed up. They're probably nursing their hangovers or something like that.
Probably.
They were ready.
They flew in, went straight to the premiere,
and they were ready to roll after that
because they needed dinner, and I don't blame them.
No. So, but yeah, so they had a good premiere. Enjoyed that immensely, and so if you want to look it up yourself, it's their Facebook page is Solitude Film. So you can check that out. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I guess time will tell exactly where you'll be able to eventually find it. That I do not know. I have no idea where they're eventually going to be going with that. But yes, it was a good movie. So we did that this weekend, and now here we are on Monday. And before I forget, we are basically on the cusp of October at this point. The cusp.
It has started. It's just started.
Yeah, the cusp of insanity, if you will. And just an early forewarning, as we typically do in October, we will only be doing one of these shows next month.
However,
Mondays
are booked.
They're crazy. We have basically no Monday availability next month.
So it will not be a Monday.
It won't be a Tuesday. It will not be a Wednesday. We are going to do our one show next month on Thursday, October 17th at 9 p.m. So just early forewarning for that. Of course, I'll create the Facebook event for it and all that. But keep an eye out for it. And when you do see it, the whole Thursday 9 o'clock thing, not a typo. We're doing that on purpose. So, with that said, I saw a couple comments. Yes, happy Monday, 1 week closer to October.
Happy solstice. Or no, sorry, equinox.
Equinox, yes.
Yeah, am I right?
Yep. And so let's go ahead. Let's get to the matter at hand for this evening. So we've talked about ghost ships before, these haunting tales from the high seas, and these whole thing, the wide open waters of the ocean, they've been rife with mysteries and tales of the unknown for as long as people have been sailing the seven seas.
Yeah.
So we got another set of stories for each night about these.
Pardon my yawning.
These ghost ships and the like. And to start off, are you going to start off or you want me to start off?
Well, you are currently making somebody extremely happy.
Yes, I am.
So I think I'll let you keep doing that until my eyes get too tired.
Oh, that's right. You got your eyes lasered.
Yeah, my eyes got lasered less than a week ago, so we'll see how much of this I'm actually reading tonight. I'm still a little hesitant on the electronics.
Yep. The whole surgery, honestly, it's worse than any horror story that I can imagine.
In his eyes.
In my eyes.
In his eyes.
Yeah. LASIK. It's been enough that you go ahead
I
and
have 20/20 vision. I'm perfectly fine, and you don't need to describe the procedure to anybody.
Fine. All right. Carry on. Off you go. If anybody would like a description of the procedure, you can go ahead and you can privately message me and I will go ahead and oblige you there. Beth thinks that it is not appropriate for the live show. So, carrying on.
Okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about the Ellen Austen. This is an infamous story that combines, of course, a ghost ship, some cursed ideas, and the Bermuda Triangle, because you can't talk about ghost ships and not talk about the Bermuda Triangle. So in 1880, a vessel named the Ellen Austen had a frightening and bizarre encounter with a listless vessel near the Triangle, but this vessel had a checkered backstory of its own that is worth discussing first. The Ellen Austen was a three-masted schooner built of white oak in Maine in 1854. It was 210 feet long and weighed in at over 1,800 tons. On her maiden voyage in 1855, the Ellen Austen encountered the Florence, a ship that had lost her mast in a severe gale. The crew of the Ellen Austen rescued the Florence crew and the damaged ship and carried them to Savannah, racking up a good karma on the first voyage. From there, she picked up her first cargo, 2,397,817 pounds of cotton bound for Liverpool.
I thought I trimmed up those very specific numbers. My bad.
That was a lot of cotton, anyway.
It was.
At the time, it was the largest cargo of cotton that ever cleared at a port. Unfortunately, the good karma didn't last. In the second year of service, the Ellen Austen managed to lose $60,000 worth of cargo, which would roughly be about $2 million today. From there, the vessel's luck descended into a downward spiral. In 1857, tales of the brutality at sea started to arise around the Ellen Austen. The ship's captain, Captain Garrett, was subject to reports of abuse and torture, including an incident where a crew member was knocked down with a heavy wire rope and severely beaten, including wounds to the man's head. Not satisfied with the damage inflicted, the captain was then said to set his two large dogs upon the man's legs, tearing and mutilating the man's flesh. Despite calls for prosecution, Captain Garrett evaded charges and he remained in control of the vessel in the months ahead. Maybe that's where the karma drifted off to. In July of 1857, a case of smallpox broke out on the Ellen Austen, and the vessel departed Liverpool with 553 immigrants. But by the time they arrived in New York, the ship had been sent directly to quarantine. A dozen passengers were ill. While in quarantine, the number of cases grew until the ship could finally be evacuated in December of that year. Unfortunately, that was not the end of the illness on the Ellen Austen. On its return journey to Liverpool in June of 1858, several more passengers contracted smallpox. Fast forward. July of 1860, the Ellen Austen arrives in New York, this time with a sick passenger, Robert Bullmore, who died of hepatization of the lungs. It's pneumonia-like. And during this midsummer journey to New York, the officers of the Ellen Austen were also accused of trying tying the arms and knees of the passenger together and passing a stick between them before rolling him along the deck like a bale of goods. The Richmond Dispatch added, This ship, it is said, seldom arrives in port without similar charges being made by passengers and crew and violent usage on the part of the officers. The New York Times ran a piece saying the officers of the Ellen Austin have very unenviable notoriety for the alleged cruelty to their men, and that the vessel has scarcely ever entered a port without complaints being made to our police courts against them for cruel and inhumane treatment. It is unsurprising that William Garrick was the ship's captain at the time and is still escaping punishment for the complaints. Captain Garrick and the Ellen Austin continued to sail between New York and Liverpool from 1860 to 1864. On March 10th of 1864, the Ellen Austin crashed into the vessel Troubadour, tearing its jibs and carrying away its bowsprit. In November of 1870, the schooner appeared on the damaged ship report. According to the report, the Ellen Austin passed Cape Horn on September 18th of 1870, then the equator on October 24th. During this journey, the ship ran into a heavy gale and caused damage to the bulwarks, post-quarter boat, and broke adrift spars which lashed the deck and caused the vessel to leak. The Ellen Austin was repaired and resumed her travels. She cleared San Francisco ports in October of 1872 and once again was bound for New York. Days after her departure, the Ellen Austin gained and collided with another ship. This time she hit the Anne Humphreys, which lost its foremast, main topmast, sails, and a whole of the rear gear attached. It also sustained considerable damage to the port bow. In April of 1880, the Ellen Austin arrived in port, having lost crew members James Sutherland at sea during a heavy gale. Later that year, we would arrive on the primary encounter in question. Here, the 26-year-old vessel, battered and scarred from years of service, would have its most mysterious experience. The schooner departed from London on December 5th of 1880, bound for New York. Several weeks into its journey, the Ellen Austin came across an unidentified schooner drifting just north of the Sargasso Sea, listless and sailing an erratic path. Captain Baker of the Ellen Austin commanded his crew to follow and observe the derelict for 2 days, lest the abandoned ship be a trap. After 2 days with no activity or movement from the mysterious vessel, the captain was convinced that it was safe to proceed closer. The Ellen Austin moved within hailing distance. When the ship still failed to respond, the captain gathered 4 of his men and rowed toward the abandoned ship. Because there was no response to the hails, the men boarded the ship with weapons drawn. The captain was first, and as he boarded, he again hailed the missing crew. Again, no response. Upon inspection, the vessel appeared to be shipshape and in reasonably well-maintained condition. Its sails were furled and tattered from exposure, but the vessel's rigging was intact. There was no sign of any violence, nor was there any sign of the crew. The only things missing were the ship's log and its nameplates, for some reason had been removed from the bow. 2 of the Ellen Austin crewmen inspected the abandoned ship's hold and reported it contained a well-packed shipment of mahogany. Captain Baker speculated that the schooner had likely been sailing from Honduras, possibly bound for England or a Mediterranean port, before something must have convinced the crew to evacuate quickly. Circumstances were indeed curious. However, the captain was intrigued by the salvage opportunity of this otherwise fine ship, and Baker instructed his prize crew to follow the Ethan Austin and sail the derelict to New York. Within hours, Captain Baker's prize crew had the vessel sorted, and it was on its way. For the next 2 days, things proceeded normal. The ships sailed in calm waters within earshot of each other. However, on the 3rd day, the schooners were separated by a fierce Atlantic storm, a side effect of the hurricane tearing through the Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia at the time. Days of relentless pounding separated the ships, and contact was lost. After 2 days, the skies opened and the seas returned to calm. Visibility extended for miles, along with an odd quietness on the water. It was now mirror flat. Absent from the horizon, however, was the other ship. The vessel and the captain's prize crew had disappeared. The Ellen Austin had been separated from the abandoned vessel for some time before it was spotted once again by Captain Baker's lookout. Through his spyglass, the captain could barely see the sails of the derelict, but for some reason it did not seem to be following course. Instead, it was drifting aimlessly once again. Baker ordered his ship to change course so that it would intercept his salvage opportunity. Those on board the Ellen Austin knew something was wrong. The abandoned vessel was reportedly sailing so erratic that it took hours to catch up to her. When the Ellen Austin closed in on the schooner, the captain and his men attempted to hail the ship, but no answer came. Baker assembled an inspection team and quickly rowed to the cryptic ship. Once again, the men boarded with guns drawn. Of the prize crew, they found nothing. No one was on board. The cargo hold was still full. Most everything was in order, except for there was no sign of the prize crew or that they had ever been on the ship. Food rations were missing. No food rations were missing. The bunks hadn't been slept in. The new logbook left by Captain Baker upon the vessel's first discovery had also disappeared.
Again.
It was as if the first encounter between the Ellen Austin and the derelict never happened. The crew of the Ellen Austin, now convinced that the derelict was cursed, wished to abandon it at sea. The captain, however, was still keen to cash in on the salvage opportunity. Baker did not know what happened on board the other vessel, but he knew the likelihood of it happening again was unlikely.
Famous last words.
So he thought. Okay, so here we go. It would take hours of careful negotiation for the captain to convince his superstitious seamen to even consider making a second attempt. The crew feared something evil was at play, and Baker reasoned that there was a rational explanation for the disappearance. To assuage their fears, the captain said to follow at a distance of no more than 10 ship lengths, and he would allow the men to carry firearms. The second crew assembled and eventually were convinced to undertake the daunting assignment. As the men readied the derelict for sailing back to New York, the weather again turned inclement. This time, the dense fog settled across the water, lowering a cloud so thick that visibility was mere feet. We're talking Scooby-Doo fog here. Again, the Ellen Austin's lookout lost sight of the ship. On the day that the seas were not treacherous, however, such poor visibility separated the two vessels and brought the Ellen Austin to a standstill. For hours, the men tried to peer through the fog, scanning the waters, looking for any trace of the other ship. When the fog started to lift, the lookout was the first to shout, "She's gone." This time, the captain listened to his crew. As the legend goes, the Ellen Austin never witnessed the derelict or its second prize crew again. Captain Baker's schooner continued on to New York, where it arrived somewhat late in February of 1881. The Ellen Austin never resumed its packet service again. Later that year, she was sold to a German company and renamed the Meadow. She would meet her fate just 2 years later. In 1883, she was reportedly wrecked along the American coast while under the command of Captain A.J. Griffin. After the 1883, the story of the Ellen Austin's mysterious encounter similarly fell off the map. It would be more than 2 decades before the mention of the Ellen Austin ship would again make news. The first mention of the mysterious encounter happened in print in June of 1906. The Daily Deadwood Pioneer Times published a story telling of one of the more inexplicable circumstances of a derelict pickup by the Ellen Austin in 1891, several hundred miles off the coast of America. Why she would be derelict, no man could say, since she was apparently in good condition. Why am I nibbling?
Spicy. Brought his tail over.
Yes, he did. All right. The story again emerged in 1935 in a radio broadcast. On October 9th of that year, Rupert Good, a retired British naval officer, introduced the public to the fantastic tale of the Ellen Austin encounter over 50 years earlier. Gould would reportedly had heard the story of the Ellen Austin from a fellow sailor. In addition to telling of the events during his radio broadcast, he also wrote about the incident in a 1944 book called The Stargazer Talks. Different versions of the tale would be retold by various news stories over the years, each offering different details of the event. In July of 1954, the Terre Haute Tribune told the story of a schooner discovered in the mid-Atlantic in 1881 by the American ship, the Ellen Austin. Of note was the change in the year from the 1906 Daily Deadwood Pioneer Chimes version of the story, which recorded the event occurring in 1891.
Sometimes cats just need to taste you for a moment to make sure you haven't been replaced by aliens. Is that what you're doing, dude?
Do I taste different from my surgery, dude? He's plotting. He's contemplating.
He is. We're in trouble.
All right. Another version of the story appeared in September 2nd of 1977 edition of the Colorado Springs Gazette-Telegraph, which told of a British vessel named the Ellen Austin that encountered the abandoned ship while en route from England to Newfoundland. In 1979, the Alaska Daily Sika Sentinel ran a blurb on the Ellen Austin, an American vessel. This version of the story also indicated that the event occurred in 1881, similarly listed two separate disappearances. With so few documented details about the alleged encounter, mapping a proper account is extremely difficult, if not impossible. Resources are limited to a handful of records from Lloyd's of London archived newspaper announcements, Rupert Gould's retelling, and the repeated legend passed from one sailor to another, and we all know what happens when that game is played.
Gotta love telephone.
So, did the Ellen Austin encounter occur ship late in its career? Did her captain lose two prize crews to a vessel of unknown origin? It's an enduring mystery that has been shared time and time again, passed down through many generations of seafarers, a haunting legend that will likely continue to surface amongst the travelers of the Bermuda Triangle. Do I even want to know?
What?
So have I been declared an alien? I mean, we all know I'm a daywalker.
Well, Patrick thinks that the prize crews were probably abducted by aliens.
That floats.
Hey, I was going to say not an unreasonable theory.
I mean, Bermuda Triangle, it's a direct gate to who knows where.
Which then in turn flowed into the comment about you not tasting like an alien.
Oh, I don't taste like an... Okay.
Well, I don't know. He let you live.
He didn't draw blood, so I don't know if he really got a good taste.
Don't encourage him.
I know. And he's probably not happy. I took my nails off today, and they really like it when I have nails on because it gives them very, very good scritches. Yeah, and they're not too happy when I remove them.
Yeah. So,
all right.
I give you the long story.
Yes, you did.
I didn't realize that was probably about 40% of the script for tonight.
Yeah, so
we do have a few more stops to make, though.
You might need to be reading a little bit more while I entertain somebody so he doesn't...
I will do so.
Doesn't bite me anymore.
Yes. Yes. So, anyways, we are going to move to the south of England. In 1878, the HMS Eurydice sank off the coast of the Isle of Wight. The tragedy, which took the lives of over 300 men, would become one of the most devastating peacetime naval disasters in British history. According to legend, the Phantom ship has continued to sail off the coast of Sandown and Shanklin after her fatal voyage. Built in Portsmouth during the 1840s, the 26-gun Royal Navy vessel was converted into a sea-going training ship in 1877. Following a 3-month journey through the West Indies, captained by Marcus Hare, Eurydice was on her way back to Portsmouth from Bermuda when she was caught in a freak snowstorm off the coast of the Isle of Wight. The storm hit as the ship arrived in Sandown Bay and, according to eyewitnesses, disappeared into the squall with her gun ports open, a curious detail since they should have been closed at the time. Failing to navigate through the storm's zero visibility, the Eurydice was blown onto her starboard side and began to sink when water flooded through the open gun ports. As the Eurydice sank, the majority of the crew were trapped inside, and those who attempted to swim to shore were sucked down with the ship. According to reports, 2 other vessels were out on the water when the storm hit, a fishing boat and the schooner Emma. Both the schooner and fishing boat reacted appropriately to the approaching storm, but the Eurydice had pressed on despite the impossible sailing conditions. No one knows why Captain Hare chose to sail into the storm, but it's clear the faith he placed in his ship's ability to survive was tragically misplaced. After the storm passed, Emma sailed to the wreckage to rescue survivors, though she was only able to save 5 from the freezing waters. Only 2 of these men survived, Sidney Fletcher of Plymouth and Benjamin Cuddiford of Bristol. The Times reported that Cuddiford, who was a strong swimmer, heard cries of help from his fellow sailors as they drowned around him. He attempted to save 2 of his shipmates, but ended up with 4 clinging onto him, forcing him to push them all off or risk drowning himself. Much was debated in the aftermath of the calamity, with some even questioning the future of training sailors for the British Navy. For better and for worse, the program of sending training ships to sea would continue. The ship that replaced the HMS Eurydice, the HMS Atalanta, would also meet a tragic end when she disappeared at sea along with her crew 2 years later in 1880. It's believed that Atalanta was also confronted by a deadly storm somewhere in the Atlantic between the 12th and 16th of February after departing from the Royal Navy dockyard in Bermuda. The loss of the Atalanta was criticized for its lack of experienced sailors, with only 11 able seamen on board along 300 young trainees, while others have attributed the disappearance to the fabled Bermuda Triangle. But back to the HMS Eurydice. Ghost stories often emerge in the wake of tragedy, and the loss of the HMS Eurydice is no exception. Since her sinking, eyewitnesses have allegedly spotted the Royal Navy vessel sailing in the waters along the coast of Shanklin and Sandown near Dunnose. It's said that the ghostly ship vanishes before it can be approached, disappearing eerily into the mist of the English Channel. While most sightings are attributed to superstition and tricks of the light, 2 sightings of the ghost ship in particular have raised the eyebrows of naysayers over the years. In the 1930s, Commander F. Lipscomb of the Royal Navy submarine allegedly witnessed the HMS Eurydice appear in front of his vessel off the coast of the island. Panicked, Lipscomb managed to evade the ship only for it to disappear into thin air. A second notable sighting took place on October 17, 1998, really not that long ago, when Prince Edward, the youngest child of Queen Elizabeth II, claimed to see the ghost ship while filming Crown and Country on the Isle of Wight. His film crew also claimed to see the Eurydice and allegedly captured footage of the phantom vessel on tape. However, the location of this footage is unknown, if it exists at all. With so many casualties, it took some time for the bodies of Eurydice's crew to be found. Some were located when the ship was eventually recovered, while others began to wash up on shore along the east coast of the Isle of Wight. The latter were buried in either Shanklin Cemetery and Christ Church in Sandown, depending on where they were found. 4 additional bodies, 2 identified as David Bennett and Alfred Barnes, are buried in Rottingdean Mary's St. Margaret's Church. The bodies recovered during the salvaging of the ship were buried at Haslar Royal Navy Cemetery in Gosport. It's unclear if the bodies of all the sailors were recovered and if they were all properly identified. A number of memorials for the Eurydice were built, including at the cemeteries where the sailors were laid to rest, somber reminders of the sheer number of young lives lost that day. So if you're on the Isle of Wight and you're among the lucky few who spot the phantom ship on the horizon, spare a thought for the Eurydice's young, ghostly crew who met their end on one of the darkest days in British naval history. And next story, we are going to stick with British naval history, but
because they're haunted a lot.
Well, yeah, they have quite the history.
I think they had a huge Navy and have continued to have a huge Navy.
So, I'm not sure if I missed some comments in there.
Probably.
I know I missed some comments in
But
there.
I'm also responding to the Haunts phone.
The Haunts phone's over here. Oh, no. I don't know. No, the Haunts phone's right there.
Yes, but a Haunts business.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Anyways. So, again, sticking with British naval history, we will turn our attention to the west side of the Atlantic Ocean, this time off of Block Island shore. So every winter, Block Islanders can spot the ghost of the flaming ship Palatine, or so the legend goes. The tale comes from the true story of a British vessel that ran aground on December 26, 1738, and from the bad reputation Block Islanders earned for looting wrecked ships. Now, Dana asked for stories about ghost ships around Quincy, Massachusetts. This is about as close as we're going to get tonight. It's not Quincy, but
It's close.
it's pretty darn close. So anyways, sailors would shake their heads when they spoke of Block Island, where wreckers lured ships ashore, killed their crews, and divided spoils. It was said, "I would rather be wrecked anywhere than upon Block Island."
We've talked about Block Island before. There's a lot of ghost stories in this area.
So, and many of these accounts and feelings about Block Island were recorded by Samuel Adams Drake in 1883. Now, Drake would describe Block Island as a bank of clay, treeless, and windswept, 8 miles long, rising out of the ocean between Montauk and Gayhead, and lying nearest to Point Judith on the Rhode Island shore, from which it is about 5 miles distant. Located in the middle of busy shipping lanes, Drake called the island a venerable stumbling block in the way of the anxious navigator. The Palatine was actually named Countess Augusta, and it carried 240 immigrants from the Palatine region of southwest Germany. The ship sailed from Rotterdam on August 1738 under Captain George Long and a 14-man crew. It was headed for Philadelphia and Virginia. The voyagers had terrible luck. The ship carried contaminated water, and passengers and crew died of disease even as stormy seas pushed them off course northward. After the captain died, first mate Andrew Brooke took charge. Supplies dwindled, and he charged passengers for food rations. Brooke tried to steer the ship between Block Island and Long Island Sound, but a blinding snowstorm drove it aground on the northern tip of Block Island at Sandy Point. That, at least, is roughly what happened. There are several versions about what happened next. One version can be found in depositions taken from the surviving crew and discovered in 1925. According to the crew, Brooke rowed them ashore, leaving the passengers behind. The Block Islanders then persuaded Brooke to bring the surviving 150 passengers ashore, nursed them to health in their own homes, and later retrieved their possessions. Good karma. The Islanders also buried about 20 passengers who died in the wreck. Then, in 1947, the Block Island Historical Society put a marker at the site of the Palatine graves. At least 2 passengers settled on the island, and the crew may have scuttled the ship out at sea, or they may have set it afire. There is some evidence, though, the ship was repaired and sailed on to Philadelphia. That's a few drastically different outcomes. So, anyways, another version is less flattering to the Block Islanders. Joseph P. Hazard told it to the poet John Greenleaf Whittier. In that version, the Islanders lured the ship onto the shoals with a false light. They then murdered the starving, freezing passengers, set the Palatine afire, and sent it out to sea to hide their crime. A passenger named Mary Vanderline, driven mad by her suffering, refused to leave her possessions. Every year between Christmas and New Year's, Block Islanders can see the ghost of the flaming ship and hear Mary Vanderline's screams above the surf. Whittier wrote a poem about it in 1867 called The Wreck of the Palatine. Block Islanders didn't think much of Whittier's effort. The Reverend S.T. Livermore called it intolerable to represent an entire community of law-abiding Christian people as barbarians and pirates. Like the Flying Dutchman or the Ghost Ship of Salem, the legend of the ghost ship has endured for centuries. In 1811, Dr. Aaron C. Wiley, a Block Island resident, described the Palatine light. The people who have always lived here are so familiarized to the site that they never think of giving notice to those who do not happen to be present or even mentioning it afterwards. The light looks like a blaze of fire 6 or 7 miles from the northern part of Block Island. Sometimes it's small, like the light from a distant window. Sometimes it's as big as a ship and wavers like a torch. He first saw it in February of 1810 and wrote, "It was large and gently lambent, very bright, broad at the bottom, and terminating acutely upward. I saw it again on the evening of December the 20th. It was then small, and I supposed it to be the light on board of some vessel, but I was soon undeceived. It moved along, apparently parallel to the shore, for about 2 miles in the time that I was riding one at a moderate pace." Benjamin Congdon, born around 1788, gave a typical Puritan explanation for the apparition. According to folklorist Michael Bell, I might say that I have seen her 8 or 10 times or more. In those early days, nobody doubted her being sent by an almighty power to punish those wicked men who murdered her passengers and crew. People are still learning about this tragic shipwreck from centuries ago. In 2017, the names of 15 passengers aboard the doomed ship came to light when Jill Farinelli published The Palatine Wreck, the legend of the New England ghost ship. Farinelli came across a letter that led to the discovery of 14 passengers. They included 32-year-old Sebastian Dieter, his wife Katerina, and their 3 children, all under 5. Dieter, a weaver and a farmer, hoped for a better future for his children than they could expect in the town of Schwager. The medieval market town had little land and too many tradesmen. Taxes were high, military service compulsory, and forced labor common. 2 other young families with small children were also on the voyage. Of the 14, only 1 would arrive safely in America. Farinelli discovered another passenger while looking into smuggling aboard the ship. Conrad Gear agreed to carry rifles to a Philadelphia merchant named Caspar Wistar. He intended to sneak them past customs officials to avoid paying stiff import duties. 2 passengers in particular remain a mystery. Called Short Kate and Long Kate, they chose to stay on Block Island. Island historians say one, who believed in the supernatural, behaved bizarrely and cast spells to bring back the ghost ship. Considering the vast number of shipwrecks that have occurred around Block Island, there is much debate about whether the flaming ship is actually that of the Palatine, if it exists at all. Taken with the unwelcome reputation that Block Islanders received over the years, with the rumors of luring ships into a watered grave so that they could be salvaged, stories have run amok in this community for generations, with many people favoring their own experiences, theories, and hearsay, culminating in a variety of sometimes wild tales, but perhaps none is quite so famous as that of the flaming ghost ship, the Palatine. You have opinions about Short Kate and Long Kate?
I do. You don't cast spells to bring back a ship. I'm sorry.
No.
Let those people rest.
That would generally be considered unwise. I agree.
Let those souls rest.
So, you want me to keep going?
Yes.
Okay.
This one I did enjoy, though, because it's World War One.
Yes.
World War One. So slightly newer ship.
Yep. What, my whistle?
Yes, wet your whistle, because I am currently entertaining a putty tat and throwing things at him.
Yep.
Apparently.
He is the star of the show.
He is. And he must play with the string because he did not get it earlier while we had dinner.
Oh dear. The horror.
Yes, the horror. Because it's all about him.
Yep. So anyways, back to Europe. We're going on to October 15th, 1917. The SV Zebrina set sail from Falmouth in the far southwest of England with a cargo of Swansea coal. Her destination, St. Baruch on the northwest coast of France. It had been a rocky start to the trip. A previous attempt 3 days earlier had ended in failure, with bad weather forcing the ship to return to port. But eventually, in spite of the pessimistic weather reports, the ship had no other option but to set sail. The crew must have breathed a sigh of relief to be on their way at last. As they said their final goodbyes, it could never have occurred to those who watched them leave that these men would disappear, evaporate like mist over the water, never to be seen or heard of again. The Zebrina, a 189-ton, 3-masted sailing barge, had been built in Whitstable in 1873. Its flat-bottomed design perfect for navigating the rivers of South America. It was a strong schooner, more than capable of transporting cement or meat from large deep-water sailing ships to the shallow water wharves, but after 7 years of service, she was retired from the route. The schooner passed through a number of hands before being commissioned by the Mercantile Navy. During World War I, the main role of the Zebrina was to ferry coal over to France, fulfilling an essential function. The Zebrina had successfully undertaken many such similar missions before that fateful day in October. What happened to the Zebrina and her crew is an unsolved mystery which has resulted in her joining the ranks of the ghost ships of the seas. 2 days after the SV Zebrina left Falmouth, she was found by the French Coast Guard, undamaged but aground off the rocky French coast in 6 feet of water. It was remarkable that although she was deep-laden, drawing between 9 and 10 feet of water, she escaped material injury and was not even leaking. On board, the men were bewildered to discover the galley fire still burning, the table laid for a meal that would never be served, and not a soul aboard. After a search of her was made, her cargo was removed and she was towed to Cherbourg. A report on her discovery and subsequent fate held at the Whitehall Archives simply stated that the Zebrina was found ashore abandoned at Rossel Point near Détlef, France, October 1917. Refloated, settled due to war risk, crew of 5 lost. Most of the 5-man crew of the SV Zebrina were seasoned sailors. Their names can be found on the Commonwealth War Graves Commission website, and the crew included Master J. Archibald Martin, age 33, George Seward, 1st mate, age 69, from Brightling Sea, able seaman W. H. Beck, aged 26, able seaman William Ferdinand Douglas Burke, aged 17, from London, and able seaman Mark Faust, aged 31, originally from Riga, Russia, which is now part of Latvia, for reference. A memorial plaque can be found for them in Trinity Square Gardens in London. Over the years, a number of theories have been put forward to explain the crew's disappearance, with most focused on 2 central themes: bad weather and enemy capture. As was mentioned before, the 30-hour journey was delayed for 2 days due to bad weather, with weather reports at the time recording an almost unbroken record of gales, with heavy squalls and rough seas making any sea journey perilous. In stark contrast, when the ship was found on October 17th, the sea was remarkably calm, adding to the eeriness of her discovery. Apart from a slight disarrangement of the rigging, the ship was intact. So as the men were not lost due to a shipwreck, what could have possessed them to abandon her? If we accept that bad weather was the cause, then either the men were swept overboard during a storm, or they panicked, believing falsely that the ship was in imminent danger of capsizing and jumped over the side, hoping by some miracle to swim to safety or be picked up and rescued. Logically, the only viable option is the first one, as it seems doubtful that most of the men who were experienced sailors, and in particular the captain, would leave the schooner and her precious cargo while she was still afloat, or believed that they could survive in such dangerous waters. The hole in this theory being that, if the men had fallen overboard in a violent storm, surely the ship would have shown more signs of damage and disorder than she did. Other theories pivot around the idea that the crew of the SV Zebrina were victims of an enemy attack. For example, the men jumping off the schooner to avoid capture after sighting a German submarine surfacing. The enemy submarine or vessel boarding the SV Zebrina and killing the crew, the enemy submarine having been spotted causing the crew to gather on the deck where they were then swept overboard due to rough seas and a storm, or the men being taken on board a submarine that was subsequently torpedoed and sunk with all lives lost. On the surface, all these theories are plausible, but less so when examined more closely. For instance, the idea that the men purposely threw themselves in the sea, preferring to drown instead of the safer, albeit unpleasant, option of spending the rest of the conflict as a POW seems highly improbable. The other idea, that the men were killed in cold blood, is also unconvincing. Such an action would go against German protocol on how to deal with an enemy capture at the time. It could be supposed that the British crew put up a fight, but again, this seems unlikely. Why, being outnumbered, would they risk certain death? The 2 remaining scenarios seem by a process of elimination the most probable. Official records show intensive enemy submarine activity during October 1917. The day that the SV Zebrina sailed, a German submarine had sunk the SS Heartburn, the SS Garthclyde had been attacked off the coast of Penzance, and the SS Hood had been torpedoed off the Isle de Bats. The following day, the St. Paul and the St. Helena were sunk in the Bay of Biscay. This evidence supports the very real possibility that the SV Zebrina, herself a victim of enemy action, herself had fallen a victim of enemy action, but does raise the question of why, if the waters over to France were so treacherous, didn't the schooner receive protection from either destroyers or armed trawlers, both often used effectively to safeguard merchant ships? There is one other puzzling piece of evidence which has been the subject of much speculation, and that is the fact that the captain's papers and logbook were still on his desk, the last entry being the day that the ship left Falmouth. German procedure, which was rigidly observed, stated that logbooks of captured crew and ships were to be removed and held as proof of claim. The idea that the captain of the enemy ship or submarine was negligent or unversed in German military protocol can be easily dismissed, so there must have been another reason why the logbook was left behind. The only plausible explanation is that the Germans were interrupted whilst the process of capturing the Zebrina's crew and had to evacuate the schooner in a hurry, maybe due to an approaching gale or squall or the sighting of an Allied vessel, and therefore had no time to retrieve the logbook. Interestingly, research made into the fate of the Zebrina crew after the war found no evidence of a U-boat in the vicinity of the schooner's course. In addition, at the time, no debris from an enemy vessel was found and no Allied ship or submarine reported having launched an attack on a German target. Although this does not invalidate the theory, as the severity of the weather could have shielded the vessel from detection or even been the reason for its destruction, it does add to the aura of mystery surrounding the crew's last few hours on board the schooner. After the Zebrina was decommissioned, she changed hands a number of times, eventually being fitted with shafting and a propeller. She ended her days as a houseboat, with her hold being converted into a boat building and motor repair depot. In 1953, she was destroyed by fire at Velder Creek in Portsmouth. With her demise, the last witness to what happened to those lost sailors was gone.
It would have made an interesting paranormal investigation on the houseboat.
It would have. Back 70 years ago?
Yes, if they were doing, investigations back then.
Wasn't too much of that going on at the time, I don't think.
Yeah.
Spiritualism, it kind of fizzled a bit. And...
well, not having the equipment we have today.
oh, yeah. There was certainly that, too.
It would have been more difficult.
Yeah. That was still quite a time before the Warrens were, and their, that community started to really come into being. But anyways.
The whole files.
Yep. So, yeah, would have been an interesting theory to see what had happened, but alas. We do have one more stop for you this evening. This time returning to the waters off of Connecticut and Rhode Island. And in New Haven, the story of a phantom vessel is still recounted by the old sailors in shoreline pubs, the legacy of which has cast a mystical shroud that cloaks the seaside village to this day. It was 1647, hot minute ago, and New Haven had suffered great losses trying to expand their colonization southward. They figured having ports in the Carolinas, they could increase their shipping profits. The Dutch settlers disagreed and drove them out. So they decided their shipping trade needed to move eastwards towards England, and they acquired a 150-ton vessel called Fellowship. The great ship was built in Rhode Island and brought to New Haven, where it waited in port while being loaded with a cargo of lumber, grains, precious furs, and some of New Haven's populace. Captain Lambert thought the boat was way too temperamental to travel such a distance, and he cursed it, stating that it would be the death of them on the high seas.
Okay, that's just a fantastic way to start a trip.
Yeah, we're off to a fantastic start. No, nonetheless, its sail date was set, and unfortunately, the winter weather had other ideas. Icy winds bore down on the harbor, encasing the Fellowship in ice until the colonists cut a path to free the ship. Once a sluiceway of significant size had been made, the ship had to be dragged out keel first. The captain felt having been dragged out stern first was a foreboding omen, yet the ship set sail. How many hints you gotta drop here, buddy? The locals cheered as the ship sailed along the icy path as far as they could, when it reached the end of the ice floe and started away. And it gets even better. As if there weren't enough bad omens, as if you didn't have what was possibly the most pessimistic captain of all time, the Reverend Davenport led them in prayer on the shoreline for the travelers and the sailors. But instead of the intended prayer, the Reverend rattled out, "Lord, if it be thy pleasure to bury our friends at the bottom of the sea, take them. They are thine. Save them." Are you kidding me? Needless to say, the crowd was stunned.
Divine possession, by the way. Divine possession.
Within moments, The final glimpse of the sails vanished from the horizon. Loved ones could only hold to prayer for a safe journey and homecoming. As the intensity of summer rolled in, the villagers waited for their return. Many vessels came from England to the port of New Haven, but with no news of the fellowship ever coming into any port in England. The citizens still held on to hope that their vessel was safe in the hands of God and it would return. A whole year passed without word as to the fate of the fellowship. It was summer again, and a great storm kicked up out of nowhere. As the tempest abated, someone spotted a speck of glistening white on the horizon. There, in the distance, loomed a proud ship, rich with sail and colors flying in the ocean wind. Much excitement spread through the village as it entered the mouth of the harbor. What happened next was recorded by Cotton Mather's, the most pious man of his era. He said, as the ship drew near, the enthused denizens noticed a single man standing on the quarterdeck. The entity held frozen in pose, pointing a sword towards the vast blue sea. They also beheld that the wind was blowing with inestimable force against the ship, yet the sails billowed outward with full gale as it sped at a furious clip, contrary to the current of air. The sea remained calm under the bow of the vessel. As it bore down on the wharf, there was not a single ripple in the great ship's wake, as if the boat was floating above the water, not within. All at once, the horrible vestiges they witnessed made them realize they were not observing their ship, but the ghastly counterpart instead. The silence of the crowd turned to terrified screams as the mainmast broke apart, and the sails, now torn and tattered, fell towards the sea. The mizzenmast and bowsprit followed in the same surreal manner. The rest of the spars and sails collapsed away from her deck in turn until the wretched hull lay in ruins before their eyes. In one silent moment, the hulk disappeared into the briny deep. An ominous cloud then descended over the spot where the hull had careened into its watery grave. In time it dissipated, and the placid waters of the bay returned. The villagers realized their brave sojourners had returned one last time to deliver the message of their fate. Reverend Davenport has since been quoted by many authors for what he said at seeing the horrific apparition. This was the very mold of our ship, and thus was her tragic end. That God had condescended for the quieting of their afflicted spirits, this extraordinary account of his sovereign disposal of those for whom so many fervent prayers were made continually. And so, it is destined to be told for all of time, the return of the phantom ship of New Haven as an omen of ill fate.
And y'all wonder why sailors are so superstitious?
We love a happy ending.
So superstitious.
Oh boy. So, on that cheery note, we hope that you enjoyed the tales for this evening. And we will be back again, as we said, on
17th?
Thursday, October 17th at 9 p.m.
Yes, and it'll be Haunted Scotland.
Haunted Scotland.
Scotland.
Yeah. This was our only option unless we push it out like a full 5 weeks. So we did not want to do that.
Yeah.
We don't want to push these shows 5 weeks apart. That would be a disservice. So
we always try to do the middle week. But yeah, this year Mondays.
Monday.
And Tuesdays are swamped.
Yes. Yeah. We got a lot going on.
So Alex just asked, has anybody ever personally toured a haunted ship? Yes, we've slept in one actually. In Norfolk.
The Wisconsin.
Yes, the Wisconsin.
The USS Wisconsin in port down there in Norfolk.
So we actually had a chance to do an investigation down there with a group of fellow investigators and spent the night overnight and got some very interesting interactions on the ship.
Quite.
One of the groups actually had apparition. Well, not an apparition, but they were able to work between the REM pods and some of the other devices and play a game of chess.
Yes.
In the captain's quarters.
Yep.
Which was really awesome. A couple of people had experiences in med bay. Overnight, I'm sorry, I zonked right out. I was so tired.
Well, That was like, what, 2 or 3 in the morning by the time it sacked out.
But several people actually reported the following morning at breakfast that they actually heard a drill happen, where they literally heard boots hit the ground out of the bunks and people start running. I just completely slept through that.
Yeah. we had some weird experiences in the galley area, too.
We did. We had a lot of success with the dowsing rods in the galley area.
Yep, the galley was pretty wild. So, yeah, the USS Wisconsin, from when the USS North Carolina,
yep,
which is in North Carolina.
The York is in North Carolina, or no, that's South Carolina, in Charleston.
The Yorktown.
Yeah.
The USS Yorktown down there in Charleston.
And I think it's Bulldog Tours that does the tours with that one.
I think Bulldog does those, yep. The Wisconsin and the North Carolina are, I think they're, they're just like per event deal.
But yeah, you can actually do an overnight with them. You just need to contact them.
And those are all just within,
easy access.
Easy driving from right here in Richmond.
Yeah. Then there's, of course, the Queen Mary out in California.
Yep.
That's actually a hotel now. So,
did they finally get that worked out?
I think so.
I'd have to look that up.
I thought I saw it reopen.
There was a whole mess with that for a while. So.
And honestly, cruise ships today, there's several stories. We've covered it before.
Yep. Because
the one we were on, the Mariner.
Yep.
There was some experiences
and
that
there
people
was
had.
one of the Carnival cruise ships had some ghost stories on it as well. We covered both of those in our, I think, Volume 1 Ghost Ships episode that we did. Gosh, it's been a couple of years, but yeah. So there's a lot of ghost ships out there.
Yeah.
And some of them are very easy to visit, and some of them actually have paranormal events.
Yep. In fact, there's a paranormal cruise happening. No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the San Diego Con. I think somebody was trying to put together a Paracon on a cruise ship. I thought I heard.
I thought Amy Bruni did that.
Yeah, she did, but I think she was going to do another one. Too.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Amy Bruni's taken to she has a whole paratourism thing that she does.
Yeah.
Going places and doing cruises and that.
Yeah, so definitely check out her stuff. I would love to go to one of her events.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we just have not been able to make schedules match.
Imagine that. What? We're busy?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's self-inflicted. Who are we kidding?
Yeah, we literally just need to schedule stuff.
We love what we do, though. So
we do.
It's all good. It's all good. And we've gotten better about scheduling ourselves for things.
Let's see what else. Decorations. Decorations are up.
Yes.
So yeah, that's up. Labyrinth is alive and on our front porch and our neighbor's front porch.
Yep.
So that is up and going. Come by and see it. Come on a Churchill Chiller's tour. You will definitely see it. Most of our guides love telling about the fact that Haunts of Richmond is haunted, and that we have been investigated professionally.
Yes, we were. We still have not seen the actual results of said investigation.
It's on a drive somewhere.
Yes.
They're still trying to find it.
One day.
Okay, so Patrick and Alex want to see pictures, so we need to post pictures.
Okay, we can post some pictures.
Yeah.
Well, we'll create an Instagram, Facebook post.
Yeah,
so.
Because I have not done evening shots, I don't think.
I don't think we have, no.
Yeah, so.
We can go out and do that tonight.
But yeah, so that's done.
Yeah. I cannot read from here, so if there's anything else.
That was it. Patrick, yay.
So, yeah, we will go ahead. We will post some pictures of that for y'all, but...
One more thing. We have a new tour.
Oh, yeah, shoot. Crap, I need to start...
He has a new tour.
Yeah, I do.
So, here's the announcement for the night.
So, need to start marketing this. We are partnered with RVA on Wheels. We are going to be doing a ghost tour on Segway.
Saturdays in the afternoon. Yep.
Saturdays in October, 4 p.m. So it's a daytime tour or late afternoon tour, whatever have you. But the sun will be up. But it's...
because Segways.
Because Segways. So we'll be buzzing around in Segways. We're tentatively scheduled almost every Saturday. The Saturday the 12th is tentative. We just have some scheduling stuff we're still working to...
It's not your weekend.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. But myself and Lee are working on, basically going to be in the guides for some haunted Segway tours with our friends over there at RVA on Wheels. So that just became public this afternoon, 3-4 hours ago.
This is why we were able to announce it.
Yes. So yeah, brand new, hot off the press. So yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Segways are super fun.
Totally him. As we discovered on the run through, I am not going to be the guide on the Segway.
She cannot. No.
No, physically I cannot.
No. But it's a start. Hopefully these go well, and then we will see where our friendship with RVA on Wheels goes from there.
Yep.
But yeah, so this kind of a trial run. If it's a success, we'll try to expand some availability with them, but that is where we are starting at the moment. So anyways, and if you do want tickets for that, those tickets are being sold by RVA on Wheels.
Yes.
So you can go and look up RVA on Wheels and book on their site. They are handling the ticket sales for those. So yeah, anyways.
Yep. So
yes. That's it.
It's just responding to the yay.
Yep. So yeah, between now and the next time we see you here, we do again, as we talked about, Nightmare Weekend's going to be going on. October's going to be in full swing. We will actually have a table this coming Saturday at the Autumn Fest at Hanover Tavern.
Yes.
That's from 10 to 3. So if you want to come up to Hanover Tavern for their Autumn Fest, admission is free.
Yes.
You can come on in. You just have to...
You have to buy tickets for food and beverages.
And any activities you might want to do. Activities really for...
Activities are for the small
little ones.
But it is definitely a family-friendly event. So there'll be pumpkin painting. There'll be a magician. There's going to be a hay slide. There's face painting.
A band.
I think there's a silent auction. I haven't heard about that yet. There was lunch.
Yeah, there is. Because they were looking for volunteers for silent auction monitoring.
Okay.
So.
So we'll be up there. And, of course, also end of the month of October is Ghost Walks at Night at Hanover Tavern, in which Chris and I will be there. And
you'll be acting.
I'll be acting. Chris will be a guide. Zoe will be another one of our guides. Will be with it. Will be up there with us.
That is Sunday, the October 20th through Tuesday, October 22nd.
Yes, and tickets are live for those. They do sell out. So if you have never done it and you want to do it, go get your ticket now.
And from what I understand, they're already moving.
Yeah.
So yep, those tickets at Hanover Tavern. I think it's hanovertavern.org.
Yep.
So, but yeah, all kinds of stuff. Spooky season. We love spooky season.
Yes.
It exhausts us. We will probably...
I will be a zombie yet again.
I won't even say November. We're gonna get halfway through the month and be...
Just in time for Raven to come visit us, we'll be zombies.
In November?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm talking halfway through the month in October. We'll be zombies.
I'm already a zombie.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. But,
anyway, we digress. We will see you on the 17th of October. One more question. Yes, Patrick says spooky season rocks. It does.
So, hope to see you before that. But if not, you can catch us live here again.
October 17th.
October 17th for Haunted Scotland.
Yes.
So, we will go ahead. And at this point, we will bid you all adieu. Happy spooky season, y'all, and have a good night.
Bye.